Ghave or Ghave, depending on how you want to pronounce it. He's a very fun commander. He can oops infinite a lot of times, so he does get some hate. And honestly, it's kind of tempting to, play him in that more degenerate manner. But you can have a lot of fun with him even without going infinite. And of course, he has the power to be abused at really any time you want. So he's a nice flexible commander that can be played in different types of play groups while still giving you an enjoyable experience. So first we're going to go with Swords of Plowshares. The deck isn't removal heavy, and a lot of the removal in the deck does come from things like attrition or aura shards. I did actually pull the aura shards recently to buy list it or sell it, just because it's pretty expensive right now, and it's only expensive because it has a limited number of printings. So that card's going to go down the next time it gets thrown into a set at like an uncommon. And we've got the commander decks coming out sometime soon in later 2019. So it's just kind of on my list of cards that I'm dumping before they come out. So yeah, no aura shards in the deck, but Swords of Plowshares definitely sees a slot. Sundering Growth. So since we don't have the aura shards, we do need to be able to interact with artifacts and enchantments. This is a choice I've made simply because of the populate on it. Crows and Grip, of course, is good too. But I think Populate is just a fantastic thing to have in a token deck. Sigil Captain, pretty straightforward. Whenever your guys come in as a 1/1, they come in with an additional 2 counters on them, or the 2 counters get put onto them. Since Gave's ability is twofold, right? You can remove counters from a creature to put that many, remove +1/+1 counters to put that many saplings onto the battlefield. But then you can also sacrifice creatures to put +1/+1 counters on them. So Sigil Captain gives you basically free creatures in a way by putting those counters on those saplings when they're coming in. Khrazda Guildmage. So, obviously he makes tokens by sacrificing a creature. It's good, definitely. But it's also really important to remember his first ability, which gives a creature +1/+1 in Intimidate. That's how you kill people. You really need to pay attention to that, because that's going to win you games when you get these absurdly large creatures like some of the Hydras in the deck. So definitely play Khrazda Guildmage and always pay attention to the fact that you can use it to kill people. Primordial Hydra. This card's great, and I am a big fan of Forgotten Ancient, for example. I think Primordial Hydra is slightly stronger because it does double the number of counters on it at the beginning of each Euro upkeeps. And I mean, it gives itself trample once it gets to a relevant power and toughness where trample would matter. So, this card, if left unchecked, can win a game pretty quickly. If nothing else, you can take counters off of it to make saplings using Ghave. So, fantastic card to have in the deck. Butcher of Malakir. Great card. I don't run Grave Pact in here, unfortunately. Same deal. Sold it. Expected it's going to get reprinted eventually. So, we'll put it back in eventually. And for now, it's going to be Butcher of Malakir. It's 5/4 with flying. So it's pretty good to have, and he can wipe your opponent's boards pretty quickly. Commander Sphere. It's a 3-color deck, so you're going to want to have that. Soul Ring. It's Soul Ring. Play it. Anointed Procession. It's very similar, of course, to Parallel Lives. It doubles the number of tokens that get put into play under your control. Put it in your deck. It's really good. I actually just put him in here recently. I haven't gotten to play to see how he works. I think he's going to be good because A, people are going to be killing your creatures a lot. So you're going to have some stuff in the bin to trigger Undergrowth, which is, I guess, a new mechanic. And he draws you cards, gains you life, and gives you a sack outlet to prevent things from being exiled. Pretty good card. Eladamri's Call. Not only would I recommend running it in this deck, but at like $2 or $2.50 each right now, since they got reprinted again, I think it's a really solid pickup, and there's really no reason why you shouldn't grab some of these to have just in general for the future. So I'd recommend probably getting this card before it's, you know, $5, $8. Yeah. Necrogenesis. Guess what? Exiling cards from your opponent's graveyard, especially creatures, is a good thing to do. And making tokens in a token deck, also a good thing to do. Strongly recommend it. Regrowth. People are going to be destroying your things. They're not going to like you. And this is one of the few ways for you to get back some of your enchantments. And since your enchantments do good things for you, like double counters or double tokens, you definitely want to play this card in your deck. Fantastic card. Eternal Witness, put it in the deck as well. I don't know if I have it in here. We'll find out. Primal Vigor. So speaking of things you're going to want to use Regrowth with, Primal Vigor is one of them. You know, the downside is it applies to your opponents as well. But the card is still really powerful. And if you have Ashnod's Altar and you play this with Ghave, then you can produce infinite colorless mana. So do that. Fecundity, it's good. It's card draw for you, and it's also card draw for your opponents. So be careful. Definitely be careful. This card is really, really good. If you like to win through combat, then you should put this in your deck. And you should also put it in your deck if you don't like losing, because it helps you win. So play it. Super fun card. Seed Spark. Destroys artifacts or enchantments, and most of the time you're going to be able to get 2 saplings out of it. It's also an instant, so it's pretty solid all around. So Spike Feeder, this card has saved me from dying a lot of times. So I personally think it's an incredibly good card to have in the deck. If you don't want to put it in, don't put it in. But I can say from personal experience in a lot of games, this card is actually really, really good to have in the deck. I'm not a big advocate of life gain generally in Commander, because a lot of times people are just going to kill you with an infinite combo, so it's not relevant. But somehow I've managed, and to be fair, I tend to play this deck more when it's non-CEDH players. So in fair matches, life gain can be relevant, and this card is really, really good at gaining you life. The fact that you don't need to pay mana to do it, and the fact that it comes in with the ability to gain you 4 life right off the bat is pretty helpful. You know, Signet and Signet again. Altar of Bone, it's a tutor. Yeah, you have to sack a creature, but I mean, you have those, so you don't care. So you should run it. I'm 99% sure it's on the reserve list too. So if that is the case, which I'm pretty sure I'm right, then it's like not a bad card to have just in general. Corpsejack Menace, big fan of this card. You know, anything that doubles your tokens or doubles your +1/+1 counters in this deck, you're going to want to run. So run it. It's good. Growing Rights, this basically turns into a Gaia's Cradle. If you control 4 or more creatures, it's pretty easy for you to control 4 or more creatures in the deck. So it's going to be online a lot for you, and it's going to start producing lots of mana for you. Good card. Auto include without question. Cultivate, you know, land ramp, play it. 3-color deck, land ramp that can fix you for 2 colors is even better. Putrefy, Beast Within is good, and the new one, something gift, can't remember what it's called. It's the one with the elephant squishing the thing. They're probably better than this, but I kind of just like Putrefy on a personal, level. Thallid Soothsayer. It's card draw, and it helps stuff not get exiled when it's targeted to be exiled, so you should run it. I think, there's other stuff that costs less mana than that does, both to activate and to cast. So if you find yourself needing to cut redundancies, you could consider cutting it. But I have noticed that this deck does tend to struggle with card draw, so I would generally recommend keeping it in the deck when possible. Dictate of Erebos. So Grave Pact is gone. It's kind of funny because my reasoning for cutting Grave Pact was, reprint, threat of reprint. And here I am keeping a card in the deck that certainly could get reprinted and is, I think, pretty expensive in foil. So I guess just ignore my hypocrisy, please, and run either this or Grave Pact in the deck, either one. For whatever reason, I feel like Grave Pact is more likely to get reprinted, because this one, it like references a god from Theros playing, but realistically, I can't guess. I really can't. I like the fact that this is Flash, right? I mean, the Flash is really good, so I'd probably run this over Grave Pact, which you can see I did when I was selecting which one I wanted to take the risk with. Colonian Hydra. This is an incredibly good card. It is kind of frustrating because I have rarely gotten this card to either A, resolve, or B, make it around the table to attack for obvious reasons. But hey, if you can get someone to use their board wipe just to get rid of this card, which they will do, then, I consider that to be worthwhile. Tendershoot Dryad. It creates a lot of saprolings for you, and it pumps them all. So it's a really good card. I took out Verdant Force for this, and I haven't looked back. Yangu, I guess. It's a 3-color deck that tends to have mana fixing trouble sometimes. So this card really helps with that. And of course, being able to tap your creatures for mana of any color is pretty awesome. So I'd run them. Yes, if you're struggling to get creatures on the board, or if you're behind, there's a lot of reasons why that card would be considered bad. So I get that. But I think he's good enough that he's worth running in the deck. Similarly, we have Rishkar, who is a little bit more limited in what he does. But I still think he's worth running. I think that the ramp you can get off your creatures from him is good, and the fact that he puts some +1/+1 counters out there when he enters is always a plus. Unburial Rites, it's a good card. I don't run much reanimation in this deck at all. The only reason I'm running Unburial Rites is because it has flashback. So I just think it's enough value in a single card to be worth putting in the deck. So yeah, definitely run that. Cruel Celebrant, because we do need to have a Blood Artist type effect in the deck. Again, life gain, it can be important. When you're going infinite with like an Ashnod's Altar and a doubling season with your commander, then this is a great way to kill everybody. So put it in the deck. Put Blood Artist. I don't really care. Doesn't really matter which one. Just make sure you put at least one of them in the deck. Yeah. The Empiric Rites. It's card draw. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't do a lot, but because it only costs 1 mana, so if you can stick this really early before your doing much else with your mana or your turns, then it ends up being pretty nice value. So I think it's worth running in the deck. You know, 1 mana spell that, you know, can get you some card draw later on. Yeah, you got to pay to activate it, but I still think it's worth running. Similar to that, of course, is Skullclamp. While I would say Skullclamp is better in most ways, the one thing that the Rights has going for it is the ability to sack something at instant speed when it's being targeted for exile. Again, you know, a lot of stuff gets exiled in Commander or EDH, you know, so just keep that in mind when considering if you want to cut it or not. I think it's worth having the instant speed sack outlet in the deck. Good Fortune Unicorn. I just found this card. It's new. It's good, and I ended up cutting the. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this card. I ended up cutting the guy from Cold Snap since that guy's 5 mana and basically does the same thing. The only difference is he would put the counters on himself and the creature, whereas the Good Fortune Unicorn only puts it on itself. I mean, on the creature. But the fact that it's 2 mana less, I really just couldn't justify keeping the other guy in the deck. The biggest drawback, of course, is if you're doing infinite creature triggers, you know, creature ETB triggers, this one isn't going to self-pump itself. So like if the unicorn had been in play and you did that infinite combo of the creatures entering the battlefield, you wouldn't be able to swing with a creature that's got like 1,000,000 power that turn if the other guys just came in. So that's really the only reason I think the other guy is also good. But the fact that it costs 5 mana, I just wasn't a fan of. Most of the time it would sit in my hand until the late game, at which point it tended to not matter. So, you know, you could do both, or you can just kind of figure out which one you like more. Fertilid, it has to do with +1/+1 counters, and it helps you search for lands. It's a great card to have in the deck. Definitely run that card. So this is a deck where Shamanic Revelation really shines. It's pretty easy to get both modes of it going for you. So again, life gain can be nice, and we know that card draw also is nice. So I would definitely recommend running that in this deck. Ashnod's Altar, infinite combos are cool. Easy mana is cool, and sack outlets to prevent stuff from being exiled. It's all pretty cool, so I think you should run that card. Regal Force, card draw on a creature that's a 5/5. It's good. I don't know. It's good, but it's not the best. 7 mana is a lot, and the deck does kind of struggle a little bit early game. At least my version of the deck does. So I've had plenty of games where he's sitting there in my hand for a while before really doing anything. Ultimately, yes, it's a strong card, and I just kind of find it being more of a win more card than an actual, core card for advancing the deck's strategy and gameplay. Smothering Abomination. So it allows you to draw cards pretty easily. It also forces the creature to get sacrificed. Yes, in some ways it's bad, but the reason I like that is because some of the other cards require you to pay mana to be able to draw the card. They have some sort of activation hurdle, whereas this guy activates itself to draw you the card. So from that aspect, I think it's worth doing. It also has flying, so if you can put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, you can probably kill somebody with it. I haven't, but you probably can. Plea for Guidance. We run some pretty solid enchantments in the deck. This helps you find them. Same deal, right? Idyllic Tutor, Enlightened Tutor. You definitely can use them. I'm running Plea because A, I had a lot of copies of it sitting around. B, it's a lot cheaper than the other ones that are probably going to get reprinted eventually, probably soon. And C, it gets 2 of them. And since we both know that your Doubling Season or Primal Vigor, one of them is going to get destroyed almost immediately, having both of them off of 1 card, I think is pretty worth considering when looking at your tutor choices in the deck. Obviously, Demonic Tutor, and I'm not even joking, I have like 4 of them sitting in my binder, and I haven't bothered to put them into this deck or most of my other decks with black in them, just because I haven't made the cuts. But Demonic Tutor should be in the deck. Golgari Charm. Regenerate each creature you control. It's good. A lot of decks have moved towards like Cyclonic Rifts. But it's good. It's going to help you against certain board wipes. And, hey, destroys an enchantment too, so why not? Card draw, you really need it. Passive card draw, you know, it's a pretty minimal cost to active, you know. Getting the card draw effect is not, there's not much drawback there. Psychotrope Thallid, it's card draw. So that's pretty cool. That's really the only thing it's in the deck for. I did have a Thelon deck, and I might do a video on it. It was like beyond hyper casual. I think the deck needed like 20 turns before it could do anything. It was really not strong. And, you know, again, there's nothing wrong with a casual deck. I prefer casual commander over quote-unquote competitive or, you know, spiky commander games. I really do. But that deck, it really struggled to get off the ground. So, yeah. Attrition helps you kill things, which you need to do in EDH. Overrun. It helps you win the game. Makes your guys big boys, and it gives them trample. And we like those things, so run it. Explosive Vegetation. Ramp. Good ramp. Color fixing, you know, all in one card. It's great. Great card. Run it. Darksteel Ingot. You'll notice in a lot of my decks, I run this card. It's indestructible, and it costs more than some other ones, but it's indestructible, and a lot of people run Artifact Hate and Target Mana Rocks, so you should run it. Slimefoot. Card's fantastic. He's won me the game before, so, you know, yeah, it's anecdotal, but I think he's a good card. His activation to put a Saproling into play, you know, 4 mana, it's pretty high, but you know, his passive effect, just it really gets there. So definitely auto include in the deck. Parallel Lives. So I have this card in here, and I know I've been, you know, whining about stuff getting reprinted and me, you know, getting rid of it from my decks. And you could say that with Parallel Lives, except for the fact that I bought like 40 copies of it when it was $2 way back in the day, and then just sat knowing it was going to go up. Obviously it did, so I outed all my copies at, you know, a nice profit. So with this card, I feel like I made my money on it, and I don't mind, you know, taking that intangible loss when it does get reprinted. Palace Siege. Every time I draw this card in a match, I kind of look at it and I'm like, why'd I put this in here? And then I play it, and I choose cons, and it allows me to return a creature from my graveyard to my hand. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, I still don't get why I put it in this deck, because it's not really helping me. So, I don't know. You could put it in the deck. I could just as easily replace this with a Demonic Tutor and be happy. But, you know, there have been some games where my stuff is just getting killed left and right, and I find myself wishing that I had Palace Siege in hand at that time, and didn't. So, you know, since you've got stuff like Spike Feeder in the deck, which is life gain, and will kill itself most of the time, I think you should have some way of getting creatures back from the graveyard. Whether it's Palace Siege or something else, I don't know. You know, you could even just use Oversold Cemetery, but I've been using this, and it's not terrible. It's just not as good as I wish. Mainly, I just think it would have been nice if it cost less mana. Symbiotic Worm. This has got to be one of the most iconic token cards of all time. So, you know what it does. Diabolic Tutor. For those of us who can't be bothered to get Demonic Tutors out of our binder, and then the rest of us who can be bothered, I guess, you know, redundancy, it's a tutor. I'm not a huge fan of tutors in EDH, honestly. I really, you know, I just don't. I don't like them. I think that the game should be a little bit more random. That's really personal preference, and it's from having played a lot of CEDH decks. You know, both piloted them and played against them. It gets kind of tiring, and that's why I have a lot of casual decks. Hour of Reckoning. It's pretty cool board wipe since you can do Convoke and destroy all non-token creatures. It fits pretty well in the theme of this deck, so you should play it. Doubling Season. The ship is kind of sailed on that card, I think. It's not going to be getting cheaper anytime soon, so if you don't have it, you probably should get it. It's really good. It works with Planeswalkers if you ever want to make super friends. You know, pretty cool card. Michaeloth, love it. I love this card a lot, but my opponents also love this card because it's really easy to overcommit and then just get hosed when they kill it. So don't overcommit when you're using this card. Overwhelming Stampede. Strictly better than Overrun in pretty much every way, except for a situation where the only thing you have out is like a bunch of Saprolings and nothing more powerful. But if you manage to get a Saproling army out with like a 5/5, then GG. So play it. Cool card. Nature's Lore. I don't know. Murmuring Bosk is a good card to get with this, as is, you know, any shock or dual land. Kodama's Reach. Swiftfoot Boots, also, you know, Lightning Greaves. They're both good. People hate your commander. They're going to want to kill him. This card helps you keep him safe, so you should run it. Poison Tip Archer. So this card is, on paper, it's really good. Like, I feel like it's good on paper, and I feel like it'd be a lot better if it was 3 mana instead of 4. This card tends to stay in my hand most games. Honestly, I mean, I'll play like I took Blood Arts out of the deck for another deck. I put in Cruel Celebrant. You know, I'll typically find myself playing one of the lower costed death trigger cards. So while I don't think this card is bad, I wouldn't necessarily rank it as an auto include. Again, it's something I would just as easily take out for like a Demonic Tutor, and probably be pretty happy with. Also not included in the deck is, you know, Phyrexian Altar. It does produce, you know, colored mana instead of colorless, unlike Ashnod's. It's really good. I do think it's probably got a little bit of time before reprint, so I probably should try and pick a couple of them up for, you know, my decks. I haven't yet, and I'm sure I'll get punished when that card randomly spikes, and I'll hate myself and all that. But for now, you know, I'm just going to try and enjoy my procrastination on picking that card up. So in terms of lands, you know, you're going to play a pretty straightforward junk mana base. We are going to throw in Phyrexian Tower, you know, make mana, sack creatures, that type of thing. Pretty cool. Big fan. Grim Backwoods. It's fine. Not great, but not bad, so you can play it. Vault of the Archangel. This card's it's pretty nuts. I've won plenty of games just because of this card alone. You can gain absurd amounts of life, and people kind of like don't always pay attention to it, and they'll swing into you, and you'll just like block and you know, kill everything they have, and they'll get super tilted. So that's always good if you can make your opponents get mad for stuff like that. It's pretty fun. Gaining life's cool. Death touch is pretty cool. Making 1/1s kill things bigger than themselves. It's all pretty cool, so definitely recommend that card. Beyond that, you know, Gavany Township, you can throw that in there. I've always liked, you know, Cabal Coffers and Urborg in decks that have black in them. Do you need it in this one? I don't know. It doesn't hurt, but it's not like it's the best. Also, I would strongly consider running Gaia's Cradle if you got it. I'll probably end up getting one and then putting it in this deck, so eventually. Yeah, so, you know, the deck itself, it definitely can be a little more combo oriented. You know, in the junk colors, you can run Boonweaver combo. You can run like Food Chain. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can run like Protean Hulk with Riviera Karmic Guide, that type of deal. You got a lot of options. I tried to keep this deck as much on the token +1/+1 counter path as possible. So, you know, do what you want with it. I think it's fun. I did recently cut Mazarek Krell Death Priest from the deck. So if anybody's kind of got it in there and debating if they want to cut it or not, I cut it, haven't looked back. So hopefully that helps you with your decision. Very specific example. So for the 2 players out there who that may have applied to, you're welcome. Get rid of it. It's okay. It's a flyer, but just get rid of it. I don't know. Yeah, so I hope you like the deck itself. You can make it more competitive. This one, it kind of ends up being a lot stronger than I expected every time I play it. I typically think I'm going to die, and then suddenly I accidentally don't die, and then people kind of just look at me, and I apologize. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool deck. Definitely recommend playing it. I probably will do the Thelon of Havenwood video anyway. I did take some stuff out of it for Ghave, so I'll have to figure out what I took out and put that back in. Anyway, go ahead, you know, tear the deck apart in the comments below. I'm bad at Magic, all that stuff. Tell me about it. Love to hear it.